everyone, I'm Jules. Welcome to Jules Reads. In this video, I'm going to talk about 10 books that are my all-time favorite books as of this moment of February 2025. So let's get started. These are in no particular order except for the top two. I will say a number 2 and a number 1 all-time favorite, and those will be last. So let's talk about Christopher Moore's A Dirty Job. This was my first book by Christopher Moore, and he's probably the author I own the most books from, alongside Stephen King. This book is a mix of laughter, a lot of laughter, and admiration. This book's blend of dark humor, absurdity kept me reading and wanting more. I appreciated his razor-sharp wit and the way he oddly turns death into something hilarious, but also heartfelt emotions. Every quirky character, from the beta male Charlie to the blood-sucking hellhounds, I couldn't get enough of the offbeat, fast-paced storytelling. This book will make you laugh out loud, and it will tug at your heartstrings, and it will definitely want you wanting more from Christopher Moore. I just love how this author turns the grim into something hilarious. I love his books. I highly recommend A Dirty Job. I will say I highly recommend on every single book. Next book on my favorites is The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. I read this when it first came out in 2003. It had me hooked from the very first line, the first chapter. The chapters are short, and there's usually a cliffhanger on each chapter. The author, Dan Brown, weaves history into mystery and also a fast-paced kind of action. Is just brilliant. This book contains puzzles, conspiracy theories, secret symbols, and it comes together in such an incredible way. I loved following the main characters, Robert and Sophie, as they navigate this mystery and these symbols. Robert is an expert at symbols. That is how he is involved with this story. And I love how it takes place in Paris, starting in the Louvre, which just brings back some fun memories. And the author, Dan Brown, describes these locations very well and just makes you feel like you're actually there. There is a very popular movie based on this book with Tom Hanks and Audrey Tautou, and I find myself watching this movie probably a couple times a year. Sometimes it's to see the Paris scenery, sometimes it's for the story, sometimes it's for the characters. I love the movie as well. Whether you're into history, mystery, or just a great thriller, I really think you would enjoy this book if you have not read it yet. It is one of the most popular books of all time, so if you haven't read it, I would be surprised. The next book is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and I first experienced this book on audio. It's one of the first audiobooks I ever listened to. I believe this is 2011 this was released, and it's brilliantly narrated. The audio is by Wil Wheaton, and the 1980s had me in such a nostalgia feel that probably that is a lot of why I love this book. And this is, I am now learning, called a lit RPG, so a literary role-play game book. Wil Wheaton's narration of this is brilliant, and he had me feeling like I was right there in the Oasis, racing through the virtual world, cracking puzzles, and ultimately racing to find the Easter egg. Like I said, the nostalgia in this book hit hard. A lot of 1980s references. I grew up in the 80s. There's a lot of movie and music quotes from the 80s, which I really appreciated. I'm not normally a high-stakes adventure book lover, but this one I just really loved. I suppose part of that could be because it's an underdog story, and I do love underdog stories. If you love sci-fi, gaming, or just fast-paced, wildly fun books, I think you would enjoy this. And I do recommend doing the audio. I think that's the way to experience this book. The next book is a really heavy book, and that is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This was published in 2011, and this is it's big one. It's not only a time travel book, but it is a complete experience. I have read a lot of Stephen King books. He's one of my favorite authors of all time, and this is my absolute favorite. His storytelling is beyond compare in this book. The way he takes such a wild concept going back to the JFK assassination, and just makes it feel so real. It's mind-blowing. The characters in here are some of the best characters I have ever read. Got so attached to the main character Jake on his journey. I think what got me most about this book is it's just way more than just a thriller. If you think that you don't like Stephen King because it's too scary or too gory, check this one out. There is not much to be scared about or gore in this book, and I know it is a lot of people's favorite King book. It's emotional, it's intense, it's got mystery, romance, action, all wrapped up in this beautifully written book. This King book holds a very special place in my heart. The next book on my favorite books of all time is Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger. This was my first William Kent Krueger book I ever read, and I have since read about 5 more. He's definitely an all-time favorite author for me now. This book takes place in a 1960s small town in Minnesota, and the details in here make it very vivid. You can imagine yourself in this small town. The book is beautifully written. Every sentence feels purposeful. This is a coming-of-age story, which is my favorite, but it is wrapped in a mystery. This is about faith, family, loss, grief, but also how life's unexpected moments shape us. The narrator, Frank, he is looking back on his life and a summer that changed everything. And let me tell you, that journey is powerful. What I really loved about Ordinary Grace is not just the mystery, but understanding the mystery. Not just solving it, but understanding it. Characters felt so real, and what they were going through, I was feeling so much, and their triumphs I felt. Krueger's writing is wonderful, full of wisdom and heart, and by the time I reached the end of this book, I was not ready to let it go. I will never forget my experience reading this amazing novel. The next book is Normal People by Sally Rooney, which was published in 2018. I have to admit that I first fell in love with this book by watching the TV show first. The TV show was released on Hulu in April of 2020, COVID, and so it just hit me at the right time. I think a lot of these books, it's your experience reading them and when you're reading them and how they affect you at that time in your life. The TV show weirdly brought me comfort in a time in our world where there was a lot of solitude. I watched the TV show many times, over and over, that I'm to the point where Hulu probably wondered what the heck was wrong with this lady. The TV show completely took over my heart. I knew then I had to read the book Normal People, and I ended up listening to it on audio. There is a lot of similarities. The show is very similar to the book. The chemistry between the two main characters, Connell and Marianne, is so real and raw and amazing. And the way that Rooney captures their misunderstandings, their love for one another, their deep connection is incredible. Rooney's writing is very intimate and stripped down. I know a lot of people do not like her writing. For example, she does not put quotations around when someone is speaking. But I really love her writing. I have yet to read another Rooney book, but I need to. I do have, I think, one other one on my shelves right now, but I do want to read that one. Reading the book after watching the TV show gave me many more insights into what was going on in their minds. But the show brings those to life in just a breathtaking way. This story will stay with you for many years. It's still with me. I will still go back to the TV show and watch that. I just absolutely love it. And I mean, Paul Mescal. Do I need to say more? The next book is A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. This was published in 2012. Fredrik Backman has become a favorite author of mine. This is about a grumpy old man, but you end up loving him. You see him change and how his neighborhood helps him change for the better. This book is funny, heartbreaking, heartwarming. At first you see him as just this grumpy old man that wants to enforce all the rules of the neighborhood, but then you gradually see him become more kind and open up to people, and you understand why he might be grumpy, and he is going through a lot of grief on his own and those challenges that come with that. Laughed out loud many times reading this just because of his grumpiness and stubbornness. Every interaction in this book means something. I have watched both the American movie and the Swedish movie, and loved both. The American one is with Tom Hanks. This book will make you laugh and cry, which I think is what, as I'm filming this, I'm realizing that is what I like to experience in a book. I want to laugh and I want to cry. If you make me do that in a book, it'll probably be a favorite. We are down to 3 more books, and this next one is actually a collection of books. It's more so about an author, and it's very different from anything I've mentioned so far. And that is Lynda Barry and her journaling books. She is a cartoonist, a professor, a writer, and I have to show you her books to kind of explain what they are. This one is called Syllabus. And if you're into journaling or want to get started in journaling, this is a great thing, great books to have. Her images are very quirky, but she actually teaches you how to journal. I think in her class, she's a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she teaches classes on how to do comics and journaling. And you basically get a cheap composition notebook, and you follow her prompts, and you just start doodling, writing. You carry it with you everywhere you go, and it could just be doing your hand image or tracing your hand. The other one I have by her is Making Comics. And then the third one is What It Is. I really need to get back to looking at these and reading them and studying them and following them. I am a big journaler, so these hold a special place in my heart, like all of these books do. Now we are on to my second favorite book of all time. I mean, it probably could be tied for first, but I'm just going to call it number 2. This book is such a gift. It is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I listened to this on audio. It is narrated by the author. It was a very difficult time in my life, and she brought me so much peace and comfort. I would listen to it on my walks in nature. I think that's the way to go with this book. I did come back and start physically reading it and tagging some things. I want to try and read this once a year. I'm actually going to put my glasses on because I have some notes and I don't want to miss anything, and I want to make sure I capture this correctly as I was feeling it when I was writing this. Kimmerer's voice is so calm, soothing, and full of wisdom, and the way she reads her own words makes every story and lesson feel deeply personal. It was exactly what I needed, a quiet, healing presence that helped me slow down, breathe, and find some peace when I really needed it. The way she weaves indigenous knowledge, ecology, and personal stories together is just beautiful. Every chapter felt like a gentle reminder to appreciate the world around me, to see plants, land, and even time itself in a new, more connected way. Her words are filled with gratitude, with love, with this deep respect for nature and the lessons it offers us. And somehow while listening, I felt that connection too. During a time when things felt overwhelming, this audiobook gave me space to reflect, to feel grounded, and to find comfort in the idea that the world is full of generosity and balance if we just listen. This book was a healing experience, and I believe it could be for others as well, especially if you listen to it while you're walking in nature. And my final book, my favorite book of all time, my number 1, is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This was published in 2017. I'm again going to read what I wrote about it because I don't want to miss anything. From the very first page, I was completely invested in Cyril Avery's life. His story, spanning decades from his birth in the 1940s Ireland to his later years, was so beautifully written, filled with humor, heartbreak, and moments of absolute gut-punching emotion. I laughed out loud, I cried real tears, and by the end, I felt like I had lived an entire lifetime alongside him. What makes this book so special is how it captures the human experience. Love, identity, belonging, loss, and the search for acceptance. Surreal is flawed, complicated, and deeply real. And watching him navigate a world that often refuses to accept him is both painful and incredibly moving. Boyne's writing is unbelievable. Sharp, witty, and deeply compassionate. Every single character, even the minor ones, feel alive. The way history is woven into this story is brilliant. It shines a light on Ireland's past, its treatment of unwed mothers, the church's influence, and the struggles of the LGBTQ plus community without ever feeling heavy-handed. Honestly, I can't even put into words how much this book means to me. It's one of those rare stories that makes you feel everything, makes you reflect on your own life, and stays with you forever. It is truly unforgettable. I just got lipstick on it. All right, those are my favorite books of all time. And what are your top 3 books favorite of all time? I would love to know. I would love to read some older books. I have not read a lot of older classics or something prior to, let's just say, 1980. So if you have a favorite from before that, I'd also like to know that. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.